Alright, quick little update before we start today's video. I just wanted to give you guys an update on the hashtag #HireMeMatti Thunderdome Challenge. You guys saw I posted all 6 of the videos. Sorry if that annoyed you, but a lot of people wanted to see them. But I'm going to be making the decision this week on who I'm going to be hiring as my editor. So stay tuned for that. I don't know what day it's going to be, but this week I'll make the decision. Alright, enjoy the video. Alright, so if you guys don't know, not Peter, but the other guy, that's my brother. He obviously kind of looks like me. He's a really good videographer, but also a photographer, and I think he started out as a photographer first. And I thought it would be interesting to do a video on the differences between camera settings in photography and videography, especially because I think a lot of people nowadays, they've been doing photography, but they're starting to get into videography. And I see a lot of people like that who are coming from the photography world. They're doing these kind of like really rookie mistakes with camera settings because there's just a lot of differences. Some of them are pretty much the same, but some of them are completely different. So let's go through camera settings in photography and videography. What are the differences and why it matters? All right, I'll catch up with the guys now. Ugh. Anybody? Huh, where'd they go? They left me behind. Guys? Anybody? Peter? Beppo? Doesn't it suck getting left behind? Kind of brings back memories of being a kid and getting lost. We actually used to play this trick on my younger brother where we'd be at a grocery store or like a clothing store, and me and my older brother, my mom would be off somewhere, we'd be taking care of my younger brother, and we would just we would hide. My brother would flip. I think he had this trauma of being left behind. I was just telling them about how we would with Mikko we would hide when we were at a store, so you would think that you're by yourself and lost.
Traumatized for life.
Trauma.
You're gonna have to pay for my therapy soon.
It's so good, guys. Do you think we look the same?
Not
Especially
at all.
right now with same haircuts too, pretty much.
I'm the more handsome one.
I'm not wearing a hat today, guys.
I just said handser, not handsomer, but just said
Handsome.
handser.
Hanser.
I make my own English all the time.
I thought I lost you guys for a second. It was bringing back my childhood traumas. This is the first time you've met my brother.
Yeah, first time.
How is he?
That's like hanging out with you twice.
Double the Matti. I thought let's talk about camera settings, photography versus videography, but let's find a better spot to do this. Just gotta wait for my brother. He's stuck.
I didn't make it up the hill. I suck.
He's still learning the whole one wheel thing. It's a little bit tricky.
They told me to go full on, and I went full on, but I just went right into the dirt there.
So I thought I would talk about the video lens settings because I really know film settings more, and I know some photography, but you're the photography master between the two of us at least. So why don't you talk through the photography camera basic settings. So first off, let's talk about shutter speed. In both photography land and videography land, shutter speed affects the motion blur in the photo. Now it's a little bit different. Why don't you talk about photography first and how you can use it as an exposure tool, whereas in videography land you can't.
All right, so when you're shooting photos, you can set the shutter speed to decide what kind of exposure you're gonna have. So if it's really bright out, you can make the shutter speed really high.
Roll it up.
You can high it to 1/8,000, for example, to get the exposure right. And then if it's really dark out, you can just boost it really low. Maybe lowest you want to go is 1/80th, because if you go lower than that, it's probably not gonna be too sharp anymore.
Too much blur.
You can use that to get the exposure right.
So in photography, you can use shutter speed as kind of an exposure tool. You're changing the exposure, but in videography, you have to stick to double whatever your frame rate is. So if you're filming in 24 frames per second, you have to have your shutter speed at 48. And that's because it drastically changes the look of your video clips if you have a different shutter speed. So if it's too low, it's gonna be a little bit like dream-like, a little bit weird. If it's too high, it's really stuttery, staccato, and you can use those as creative tools, but for the most part, you're doing double whatever your frame rate is, and that's why you use something like this, an ND filter. ND filter is super important.
Matty's #1 rule, always use an ND filter, and I was so against it for so long, but now I understand what he's talking about for filmmaking.
I believe I also got Peter into ND filters, but ND filters, you can't use shutter speed as an exposure tool to just bump it up. So you use an ND filter to make it darker and keep that double the frame rate shutter speed. It's called the 180-degree shutter rule.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference between shutter speed and photography and videography. Next, we're going to talk about aperture or f-stop. And actually, in both of our lands, it's pretty much the same, right? Like, it's just a creative decision.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want a shallow depth of field, you're going to
use a really low aperture like 1.4.
There you go. If you want a deep depth of field, you need a lot of things in focus, the background and the foreground, you're gonna make it a higher numbered f-stop. So for the most part, they're pretty much the same, but I think the big difference would be that in video, you have to do a lot of manual focusing.
Yeah.
And so if you're filming at, let's say, f1.4, and you're not very good at manual focusing, then you're gonna miss focus a lot. So that's something you have to kind of think about.
And with photography, you kind of have the luxury that autofocus is so good nowadays.
So
that
good.
Even with 1.4 Canon, you can still just lock that focus in, and you're good to go, getting that sweet, sweet bokeh, as Matti talks about always.
Oh yeah, sweet, sweet bokeh. Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but it's pretty. This one's pretty much the same. It's a creative decision, and this one's your biggest creative decision, choosing how much depth of field you have. Next, we're going to talk about color profiles. So we've talked about this before. Log profile in video, you want to shoot as flat as possible, but in photography land,
doesn't matter at all, because
doesn't
you're
matter.
gonna shoot raw and you can just change it to whatever you want afterwards.
Yeah, so raw is even better than a log profile. You're not baking anything in, whereas in video land, you're usually baking things in. So raw, you don't need to shoot flat. It's okay. Then another thing in video land you have to think about is frame rates, whereas in photography,
you just snap that one photo.
Doesn't really matter, other than if you're trying to get like a sports shot or something and you need it to be like
that.
super fast. Like, well, why don't you do like you were using my camera the other day, and you're like, why don't you have it on continuous? Why do you do continuous?
Yeah, for example, I like using the continuous shooting drive mode because I want to snap 3-4 photos in one instance rather than just one shot at a time, because someone's eyes just closed and then I miss that moment if I only do one photo. So I do 3 photos at a time to get the shot.
The kiss, you know, at the front of the altar, boom, 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 right?
Yeah,
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas in video, it's a big thing. You have to choose, you know, do you want to film in 24 frames per second, 60 frames or 30 frames per second, and all those make a really big difference in the look. And the key here is, you would, I'm sure, agree with me, real time, always film 24 frames per second.
You can notice right away when someone's filmed 60 frames per second and you're cringy like, oh,
why is that in 30 or 50 or even worse?
Yeah.
So real time, always 24 frames per second. Don't listen to the gamers. 24 frames per second is the best.
Or the sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's just but if you want to do slow motion, that's when you use, you know, 50, 60, 120 frames per second, and then you can form it to 24 frames per second. So that's a big thing when you're coming from photography land. You need to know bigger is not better here. Like more frames per second isn't necessarily better. It's gonna be a worse look. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna battle it out, photography versus videography, and we're gonna kind of go through showing you guys how we change our settings, which settings you change first, what do you choose, why you choose it, and then so you'll do photography and then I'll do a video clip. So you'll do a photo of me and I'll do a video clip of you.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. So we're gonna let's take a photo with this tree. This tree's kind of cool, you know. Get some.
Pretty sweet. We'll get that nice bouquet in the shot.
Oh yeah, that nice bouquet. All right, so talk me through. What are you doing if you need to take a photo of me right now? What are the settings?
First, you got to know where you're shooting. So if you're shooting outside, you have a lot of light. So if you have a lot of light, I first start with the ISO, and I'm gonna put it as low as possible because I don't need any extra artificial light. So I'd put to ISO 100. Then after that, I'm gonna decide, do I want a shallow depth of field or do I want really sharp photos? So if I'm doing a portrait of someone, I want shallow depth of field, so I'm gonna do 2.0 or less. But if I'm doing a landscape, I'd probably do 5.6 or above. Once I got the ISO and I got the f-stop decided, then I'm gonna decide what shutter I need in order to get the right exposure. So it's simple as that, ISO, f-stop, shutter speed.
Now, we were just talking about ISO, and I actually realized that we didn't talk about ISO. ISO is the same. The higher the ISO in photos and video, the worse your photo is gonna be. So you wanna keep it as low as possible, but if it's dark and you need to bump it up a little bit, that's okay too, but always try to keep it as low as possible. Like my brother said, when it's outdoors, keep it low. All right, so that was the photography side. Now we're gonna do videography. So how I would start things is first I wanna choose frame rate. So do I want this to be slow-mo or real time? For this shot, we're gonna go real time. We're gonna go 24 frames per second. After that, shutter speed, 50. We're always gonna double whatever our frame rate is, easy. And like my brother, I like a nice shallow depth of field. This lens only goes to f2.8, so we're gonna go 2.8. And just like my brother, I like to keep the ISO as low as possible because the higher you boost your ISO, the worse your image is gonna be, the more noise is gonna be there. We're outside, there's lots of light. I'm gonna keep it nice and low, and then we're good to go. Let's see how it looks. All right, it's time to one wheel back to the office. One thing I kind of forgot to mention was white balance. White balance with video, again, because we're not shooting raw, it's really important to get it. So if you're filming in daylight like this, use the daylight setting. If you're filming on a cloudy day, use the cloudy. If you're filming tungsten light indoors, use the tungsten setting, or use auto if you want. But in photos, it doesn't matter, raw. Raw is the best. I wish we could shoot raw video all day long, but that would be a little bit counterproductive because the file sizes would be massive. All right, anyways, we're gonna continue one wheeling and enjoying this day. See you guys.